Okay, Year 7. Welcome to the fourth part of creating the beginner's tutorial, the Ghost Shooter game. Now, starting off straight up, remembering that we know how to open up our game now, so I'm just going to do that real quick, just to give you a reminder. However, we should be good at this point with this. So, remembering that once we're in here, we go to Cloud, make sure it says Google Drive at the top here. It should load and open up a new tab, and you should be able to open it up. And coming down, I remember that we created a folder that said Computer Studies Year 7, and then we're looking for the C3P file. And there's mine. And we'll let it open up. Okay, so last lesson, we did a couple of things. We started out by making some more monsters on the page. Then we went to what we call the event sheet, which is the coding behind the game. And we talked about the fact that there are two halves to the events. So just a reminder for this lesson, when I want you to add an event, we're going to add event down the bottom. Remembering that the first half is called a condition, and the second half is called an action. So we put in these two events to start with. The first one, the condition bit, is system every tick, which means that every time the system of your computer ticks, it will do something. And what it will do is the action. So the second part is that the player will follow your mouse. So if I open up this game window, we know that it's going to follow the mouse, and then the second one was that if I click, it should shoot out a bullet. Now, it's not going to do anything other than shooting out the bullet at the moment because we haven't put any code for it. Now, at the end of last lesson, I mentioned that this bullet is actually coming out of the player's head. So if you actually watch it, it's going to be really fast because bullets are fast, but it actually appears from the head of the player instead of the gun. First thing we're going to do in this lesson is we're actually going to fix that. So let's get rid of that. If we go back to our layout page, and we are going to go to our player, and we are going to double click on him to open up this window. Now this window is an editing page, so we can actually change quite a few things in here. But what we're going to do is we're actually going to change what we call the image point, or what we call an origin. So, coming over to the side panel here, so not the top going across the top, we want the one that going down the side, you may find that you need to scroll down. We are looking for this button here. It looks like a little circle with a dot in the side and its little crosshairs. If you hover your mouse over the top, it should say edit image point, and that is it. So, if we click on that, you will notice that the box over here changes. The first point we have is called an origin, and we can see that it's layer number 0. So the origin at the moment is the middle of the player. We want to keep that origin, so please don't go around clicking around in here. We want to keep the origin exactly where it is. What that origin point does is when we have our player following our mouse, that origin is basically like a pin that your player pivots on. So if you go around moving your moving your origin, you'll actually find it really hard to maneuver your character. What we do want to do is we want to create a new origin point, a new image point. So we are going to come over to this big box over here, the image points. We are going to right click, remembering most of you are on laptops, so 2-finger click. And then we're going to click add a new image point. And now you should have another one pop up. So you can see here, it's a little red box, and it should say image point 1, and then over the side here, it should put a 1 in there. You'll notice as well, if you're looking at your player, you'll have a little box that's appeared now. Now, making sure that this one is highlighted, don't be highlighted on this one, so making sure we highlight it on this one. We want to change that and move it to the tip of the gun. That way, our bullet is actually going to shoot from there. So once it's in there, you can then just close out of that window and that will automatically save. Now, if I go back to my event page and we actually read this, so last lesson we put in an event that said on mouse left click, which is just your normal click, player spawn the bullet from image point 1. Now, the reason we had to put image point 1 is because we've just made that image point and it's image point 1. So that just means that the bullet is now going to spawn at that point rather than on the top of the head. So let's have a look and see if that worked. So if I click, there we go, it now comes out of the gun instead of coming out of the player's head. So it's now a little bit more realistic. Okay. We are now going to go back to our event sheet. Now, remembering that if you find that your event sheet up the top here is gone, in your project bar, it should just be over the side here. Again, if you have lost your project bar or your properties bar, which is the one on the side here, you can come over to menu and then go view, bars, and then just make sure that you get them ticked. So just click on them and they should appear. So you can open up your event sheet from the tab at the top or at the side. We're going to actually add in a couple of events. So the first one we're going to do is the most interesting because it's going to mean that when we actually use our bullets and it hits a monster, we're going to actually get the monster to disappear and be destroyed. So if we could all add an event for me, please. Now, making sure, remember that it says add condition at the top. This is going to be really important for this section because we're going to actually add multiple actions. So, first thing we're going to do is add a condition. We're going to go to our bullet. So, the bullet is what we're trying to code, and therefore that is what we're working with. We are then going to find on collision with. So, easiest way is if you start typing in collision, you'll be able to find on collision with another object. Now, making sure it's this one, the one with the little arrow next to it, not the ones with the little bullet next to it. So on collision with another object. And we are going to click next. Now, obviously, we want the bullet to collide with the monster. So the object that we want to choose is the monster. There we go. And then you can click done. So that is your condition. Now, we are actually going to add a total of 3 actions to this. First thing I'm going to do is click add action over the side. And we're going to tell it that once the bullet collides with the monster, we want the monster to be destroyed. So if we click monster and then we go and find destroy, that's our first action. So if I go back up to the top and I click play, now, when I shoot the bullet at the monster, well, if I get a monster, here we go, the monster disappears. Alright, there is a couple of other things we're going to do with this. We're going to add 2 more actions. So usually when I say add action, you'll see that there's a little box underneath the first action we've made that says add action. We want to click that one. Now, you'll know you've done it right, again, because you have add action at the top of your box. We're going to actually make it so that when the bullet hits the monster, the explosion spawns in, and then it should fade away. We also want to do another thing. We'll wait for that. So, again, bullet, and then we want to go find spawn another object. So again, we can just type in spawn, and then it should appear for you. So spawn another object. And next. And this time, we actually want the explosion to spawn in. So, spawn an explosion. And we're going to keep the layer and the image point the same. So, we still want it on layer 0. And then we haven't created a new image point for the monster. And therefore, the default is image point 0. So, done. Now, again, if I go into the play, if I were to destroy one of these, now an explosion appears for you. Alright, last thing we're going to add to this event. So coming down the bottom again, where it says add an action, we're going to go bullet. Now, because we've shot this bullet, once it's been shot, nothing is stopping this bullet from forever going forward. So what that means that you shoot your bullet and it will forever keep going off into space. Now what that actually does for a game is it creates a bit of a backlog of items. So if a game has too many sprites or too much going on, it can get a little bit what we call laggy. So it starts to slow down. So what we actually want to do is, once the bullet hits the monster, it actually destroys, because then we don't have hundreds of bullets going around in the world when we don't really need them. So this time around, we are going to go and we are going to go destroy, but this time it's for the bullet. So that way, now if I go in, and if I click on and drag, then not only does the monster get destroyed, but so does the bullet. So with this event, just clearing up, we've got when the bullet collides with the monster gets destroyed, an explosion spawns in, and then the bullet gets destroyed as well. Because bullets are useless after they've hit a target anyway, or been shot for that matter. Okay, last thing we're going to do for this lesson is, if I go and play again, and I shoot a monster at the moment, the explosion appears, but the explosion looks a bit weird, doesn't it? It has a black box that appears around it, and it's not very nice. It's not appealing to the eye. Nobody really wants to have that. Even in here, we can see the big black box around it. If we can go back to our layout page, like I have so, and click on, click once on your explosion for me. So it should just highlight it like so. You can then come over to the properties bar. Now, remember, if you don't have the properties bar, you need to do the menu, view, and then go open your properties bar. What we're going to look for is effects. So coming down all the way near the bottom, you'll see that there's a little heading that says effects. Now, the one that we're going to change is the blend mode. So we see blend mode right here. And at the moment, it says normal. If we can click on the little arrow next to it, a little drop-down box should appear, and you have a whole list of things that you can change it to. The one that we want to change it to is additive. So it should be the one right under normal. So we're looking for additive. There it is, additive. And you'll notice over the side here, if I just unclick from it, the explosion changes, there's no more black background, and it's a little bit lighter. So again, if I play now, and we just wait for a monster, and I click, now the explosion appears, and there's no black box because we've changed the blend mode. So it makes it a little bit easier. Okay, so just to recap what we've done today, we have changed the image point of where the bullet is coming out of. We've actually added a whole event with 3 actions in it. So we've now learnt that a single line of code can have multiple actions. So that means that one condition can have multiple actions. And then we have also changed the explosion so that it no longer has a black background. If you are up to that point, you're all good and set. Now the last thing we're going to do is we're going to click save. Making sure again that the box appears down the bottom, and making sure that the thing you just clicked, which is next to the menu, has now gone dark grey, and therefore you cannot save any longer. If you have done all these things, you are good and done.